you're not alone. If you need someone to talk to today, please contact Crisis Services Canada by either calling them at 1-833-456-4566 all hours of the day, or you can text them at 45645 at 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Time. Remember, you're not alone, and Crisis Services Canada is here to help. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Manitoba Show, Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. I'm your host, Graeme Forsyth. Today's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba is brought to you by AETI, Evolve Green, and Fabricland Winkler. And today's edition of the show is going to look a bit different. What is going to be happening is no farm report for this week. Harry Siemens has a commitment. Not going to get into it. In respect to Harry, I don't want to disclose that information, but Harry will be on next week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba. We're going to have Gordie Tumilson joining the show here first off today from Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy to talk about all things Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, as well as I'm going to be talking to Lorena Mitchell. And then after that, of course, Lorena Mitchell coming on this week's edition of the Solar Report to update us on the weather and things that are happening in solar and some other stuff as well, but potentially. But I'm going to be doing an edition of Graeme's Opinion after Lorena leaves the show, and then gonna probably go away from Graeme's Opinion after that and make way for an interview that I'm gonna be doing. Gonna be joined by MJBL, which is the Manitoba Junior Baseball League here in Manitoba, the president of that league, Jamie Bettens, to get an insight of what the plans are looking like at this point for the upcoming 2022 MJBL season. And then after Jamie leaves the show, depending on how much of Graeme's Opinion I am able to get in before I have him on the show, we'll most likely be doing another edition of Graeme's Opinion to end off today's edition of Rise and Shine. So it's a jam-packed show today, as always, even though we don't got the same crew here with Harry Siemens missing in action, but it is still going to be a lot of fun here on Manitoba Show, Rise and Shine Manitoba. First up here on Manitoba Show on this Wednesday morning is going to be Gordie Tumilson, and once that intro runs, Manitoba, you know what it's time to do. It's time to rise and shine here on Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. Tumilson joining this week's edition of the Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy segment here on Rise and Shine Manitoba. Gordie, the goalie coach and marketing director of Pilot-Mound. We saw the U15s in action, Gordie, as well as some other teams in the academy this past weekend. But let's go with the U15s here first off. They played 3 games in total, one last Wednesday, of course, a week ago from today, and they played 2 on the weekend. They played against RHA Winnipeg and against the Northern Alberta Extreme. Not faring so well in any of those games. Take me through the past 3 games for the U15s.
Yeah, we played the Division I teams. We're a Division II team, and that's the way that goes. That's been established, so that's okay. They give us a tough time as we expected. We know that we cut our goals against down again to the RHA guys and to the next guys on the weekend. So, shots were down a little bit. Goals against were down a little bit. We're getting used to playing those guys, and we're playing against teams that are basically 20 players that are the sort of oldest age category. They're all turning 15 this year, where half of our team's only turning 14. And so we're smaller, we're not as quick, blah, blah, blah. But we learn from those games. We get our kids on video, and I certainly do that with the goalies. And we learn from those videos about how quick the game can be and what they're expected to be like when they get older as they move forward in their hockey careers. So it's not a bad thing. It's frustrating a little bit and disappointing sometimes, but nonetheless, we tried hard, and that's all we can ask of the kids at this point. And that always bodes well for our play against lesser teams when we do play them. We find ourselves having more success, so that makes us happy.
Going into the Northern Alberta Extreme Games, I mean, the team lost, gave up 69 shots against, only had 5 on net. But in terms of the shots, even though the score was more lopsided, 12-0 on Saturday, the Buffaloes ended up, this U15 team ended up having 14 shots on net and only gave up 57. So when you talk about improvements, even though the score didn't improve on the scoreboard and they got shut out on Saturday, definitely got to like those things, like limiting the team to, lesser shots, even though they still gave up 57, but more importantly, getting double digits in shots for the Buffaloes themselves.
Yeah, both teams changed their strategies. The Nax team on Friday night was shooting everything they could shoot from everywhere. They didn't really work towards making as many quality plays for quality scoring chances, it appeared. So they were down about 20 shots at the end of this thing, and on Saturday versus Friday. And so they were shoot on Friday night from anywhere, and then on Saturday it was work to the slot, get the best quality shots possible. That was quite evident in their play right off the bat. They just weren't shooting the puck right away, and so they got more goals because they were in better position to shoot the puck and score more goals. But and again, we learned from those things. That's the bonus for our kids. We not only learn from the defensive side of the game, but if we watch their team, that's what good offensive teams do, and that's how people move around and do the things that they do. So the skill level of the Nax team, the read and react of the Nax team is well documented, and we learn from those things, or at least our players should learn from them, and that helps us with our player development program. It doesn't hurt us. Again, it's disappointing, but nonetheless, the 2 different games. Same outcome, but 2 sort of different kinds of results. So, good learning experience for us.
Going into the U17 prep male program now of Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy, they ended up going to Calgary, Alberta to play at the Winsport Olympic Park hockey rink, and they ended up winning 2 games and also ended up losing 2 games. So 500 on the weekend for this U17 group. Take me through the past weekend for them in those 4 games, winning 2 but also losing 2 as well.
Yeah, I think defensively we played in the 2 wins. We played way better defensively. Seemed to have more energy. That's who that team is. This is our team. If we have energy, if we play hard, it doesn't matter who we play against. I mean, we're going to have a chance to win. We played the RHA, lost twice to RHA, I believe, and so the RHA team from Kelowna, a good team, but we can beat those guys. We just didn't show up for either of those 2 games. We did show up in the other 2 games. Our goaltending was pretty much the same in all the games. We weren't quite as good in the 2 losses, but we were certainly okay, and then really good in the 2 wins. So we were full value for the overtime win with Miles in goal. It's his first win in a while, so that really worked out nicely for Miles Gordon, and he got a little bit of a monkey off his back, and that really helps his confidence going into the next couple of weeks and the playoffs. Kean Hodgins was really good and solid in the win that he got. Again, and our goalies are making north of 40 to 50 saves a game, even in the wins. So that's good. But again, the shots aren't quite as quality. They're shot from the outside a little more. Yeah, we have better games, and we clear rebounds better on some games, and then we don't look as good, and we lose unfortunately in the other 2. But 2 wins is a nice weekend for our guys.
Yeah, and getting near the end here of the regular season, being able to do those things, like you said, shoring things up a bit more offensively, especially like I was seeing in those 2 wins this past weekend. How nice is that to see from this group, being able to do those things at this point of the season as playoffs are almost set to get underway here in the CSSHL.
Yeah, the confidence thing is the most important part of this. It's really important for our teams to have some confidence going into the playoffs. We'd like to upset some teams and beat some teams, and for us to do that, you got to at least feel like you can compete. So at the moment, certainly the U17 program kids are feeling pretty good about where they're at for the most part. Our coaches are feeling a little bit better about things, and we've got some positives to build on. So that's a good thing.
Going into the U18 female prep team, definitely a positive for them was their last game of the weekend against the Delta Hockey Academy U17 team as they won that game 7-5. But close games for them all around this past weekend. Take me through the past weekend for this team as they went to Penticton, BC to play their games.
Yeah, a bit of frustration. We lost 2 games 4-3. Julie Ducharme has lost, I think, 3 of her last 4 games 4-3. So we're trying to avoid that score with whatever we can do to do that. But she's played really well, and a little frustrating. But giving up again north of 50 shots in those 2 games, those 2 losses. We lost 2-0. River Johnson lost her game 2-0. The first one, 40 plus shots in there. But we did get a win. And so the 7-5 win, although it was a bit ugly on the defensive side, we managed to break out and get some goals against the Delta team, who, much like our guys, sometimes they play really good and sometimes they don't. This particular game, they weren't very good and we weren't much better, but we had enough scoring power to get past them and get 7 goals. So good for us to come, that bus ride. It's a 2-day bus ride home for those kids. A lot of studying on the bus and, a lot of resting up, getting ready to come back to practice when they get home. But nonetheless, a much more positive bus ride home for the girls coming out of BC. And a first chance to go to BC and kind of see where they're going to be playing. Sorry, Graeme, but going to see where they're going to be playing in the down the road in the playoffs. So that's a bonus for us.
Yeah, nice for them to get some familiarity with, the place that they will be playing in the playoffs. But, just that score, something unusual from this team has been explosive offense, and they definitely got that. And they did it all without having a leading goal scorer and point getter on the team, Morgan Satie, getting a goal. Of course, she had 2 assists in that game. But, to be able to, for this team to know that they have this ability to put up this amount of goals when they are able to play their game, put out that offensive output, must give them a ton of confidence here.
Oh, absolutely. We've struggled on the offensive side all year long. We don't have a ton of good playmakers normally, but the stuff that, I've harped on this all year long. It's a development program. That's what we are. That's who we are. And I guess everybody's a development program, but this particular season, we are really a development program. From a lower level of development to a higher, to trying to catch up. So, and some of that's working out now. I've been saying since September, we're working hard on stuff. We're trying to do it one step at a time and go. And here we are, 6 months later, going into month number 7 pretty soon. And we're starting to see some of the really good results, both offensively and defensively. So, that's a great sign, and building our confidence going in against some of the teams that are in the Division II program that we're in really makes us feel better. So, yep, we're keen, and I know the girls are excited.
This week coming up here for practice, we always talk about it here, Gordie, but what's this week going to hold in terms of what these 3 teams are going to be working on in practice here, looking to get ready for their next games they're going to play when those do arise?
Well, I know that all 3 teams are kind of at the same point in their schedules for practicing and whatnot. We've worked hard on the defensive end of our game for the longest time now. So I think the forecheck this week for all 3 teams is going to be big. If we can forecheck better, be a little bit more on the puck, a bit quicker, a little more pressure, those kinds of things from their point people. F1, F2, get on that puck right away. F3 in the backup role. We can keep the puck in the other team's end. Guess what? We don't have to make as many saves. We don't have as many shots against. We don't have as many goals against. And so the games are going to be tighter, and we have a chance to win those kinds of games. Plus, when you forecheck like crazy, it opens up all kinds of opportunities because the other team, of course, is now running around chasing us when we get a hold of the puck, and that's a good thing on the offensive side. So I think it's forecheck, and then forecheck some more.
Oh, an extra forecheck for this week for all 3 teams in the academy. Yeah, it's going to be great for them to work on that, be able to have that chance. What about for the goalies? The meetings coming up for them this week. What is going to be talked about?
Well, we're going to continue to to work around our goalposts and keep the puck out of our goal. We had a particularly good weekend this weekend. We didn't give up anything around the goalpost. That's snuggling up against the post on wraparounds and plays that come off the sideboards and around the goal line, etc. We played really, really well on that because now teams are trying to score from everywhere. Typically going as you go along the season, there's a lot of passing to the front of the net, a lot of those kinds of plays, passing to the point. Now teams are trying to establish their final playoff position. They're trying to figure out how to score more goals, and so because teams are taking away those opportunities, they're looking to score in other ways, and that is typically coming around the goalpost and trying to jam pucks in, flipping them over goalies' shoulders as they're snuggling up against the post on the short side. So we'll continue to do that, and we're going to work a little bit more on our handling the puck around the net stuff. We've been pretty good at that over the last little while. We want to continue to that so we don't make any momentum swinging bad goal type plays around the net, either on the posts or handling the puck around our net.
We've talked so much, I think every single episode almost, about what the goaltenders are working on or what you're meeting with them with. I mean, with all the things you've worked on this season, to see, whether they've been able to put it into practice, apply themselves, and been able to succeed with the things you've been telling them, or maybe they've struggled a bit. How pleased have you been with the progress of all 6 goaltenders in the academy this season, or all 7 goaltenders?
No, that's fine. I'm really pleased at where the kids are at. They've all come to us at a different place in their careers, and they've all gotten better. There's no question, but they all know more. Taking it to the rink is always the hard part when you're playing sports. You take it to the ice, take it to the field, whatever that your game is, and playing goal, of course, is the ultimate defensive position. You're just waiting for the other team to do something, and you have to react. And that's been a good thing. We've learned a lot about what offensive players do, what our team does now in certain situations. We know who our defensemen are, where our forwards are going to be, what they're supposed to do. So I'm really pleased with the total overall package. There's some little glitchy things that, of course, we're not doing well yet, or as well as I'd like to see them, but they're getting there. And our goalies are young people. The male goalies are all young guys and guys in their programs. The girl goalies are moving on to probably college next year, and they're well situated in their development for their Division 1, 2, 3 programs that they might be going to. So yeah, we're in pretty good shape.
Great to hear, and great to know that the stuff that you've been teaching and preaching has been paying off for these goalkeepers in their own right. So talking about one last thing here, Gordie, the upcoming weekend of games for the academy, what's on tap for if any teams are playing this weekend?
Well, right now, only the U15s have scheduled games, as best I can tell. I'm going to check in again with our guys. They're lining games up all the time to fill in some blanks that have occurred because of COVID and because of rescheduling and all sorts of things. But right now, the U15s are playing in Saskatchewan, at Caronport, and they'll play 3 or 4 games out there, and that's good. We'll watch those guys as I did. I watched 10 games on the weekend, Graeme. I was bleary-eyed by the time. And I put that out on Twitter. My gosh, but it was it's 2,000 below here in Manitoba, and I never exaggerate, by the way. So it's no less than 2,000 below. But watch some games, and we're going to watch some more games on the weekend. And our big guys are U18s and U17s get some time off, so that's okay too.
Yeah, nice for them to be able to have some time off. And, of course, the U15s will be in action today at 4:30 on ASTV Productions against the Rink Hockey Academy Winnipeg team. Gordie, thanks as always for coming on this these editions of Rise and Shine Manitoba show. Until we do it all again next week, Gordie, you take care, stay safe, and we'll talk to you then.
Same to you, Graeme. Thank you.
Gordie Tumilson joining this week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba. First up here on this Wednesday morning, and of course the Pilot-Mound Hockey-Academy Buffaloes U15 prep male team will be in action today on the network at 4:30 p.m. Be sure to catch it on anywhere you watch our broadcasts here on the network. And just to give you guys an update, for the first time ever, I think, I'm not sure. Well, for the first time since I've been with ASTV, we are going to be broadcasting provincial swim meets coming up this weekend here on the network from the Pan Am Clinic in Winnipeg. So I'm going to be announcing those. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I'm going to be honest, I don't know very much about the the lingo about swimming and how to announce it. So definitely going to have to look into that. But we're going to have Lorena Mitchell joining the show here up next. Of course, she's the president of Evolve Green. She's going to be talking about, all things solar here on the Solar Report coming up, as well as what the weather is looking like. She is supposed to already be in here, but she is not in here yet. Might as well update you guys on what is to come. So even though we are in late February here, spring will be here before we know it. And that means baseball season will be here before we know it. And to get some insight about what is going to be happening with the league here in Manitoba, the Manitoba Junior Baseball League, I'm going to be sitting down with the president of the MJBL, Jamie Bettens, later on here in the show to just ask some questions about, what the plan is for the season in terms of the schedule, how many teams are returning, and some other stuff as well. But before that, I'm going to be doing an edition of Graeme's Opinion, of course, after Lorena Mitchell is off the show. After we end this week's edition of the Solar Report. Of course, this week in Graeme's Opinion, we will not be having Seth Rock, and I have decided to go solo on this segment from here on out until I can find a replacement for Seth. Love doing Graeme's Opinion with Seth, but want to do it live, and that would mean that I would have to do the segments pre-recorded with him. Just doesn't work out for my schedule, and he's a busy man as well. So might have someone else debating sports with me here in the next little bit here in the future, coming up in the future here on Rise and Shine Manitoba on Graeme's Opinion. But just to let you guys know, I will be going solo for the foreseeable future on my segment, Graeme's Opinion. And what I'm going to be talking about today later on in the show is going to be about the Winnipeg Jets' last 4 games. Going to be taking a look at 3 players that, I've had some rumors about them moving in the NHL trade deadline, as well as I'm going to be talking about Team Canada's Olympic loss in the quarterfinals, the men's team, what went wrong for them in this tournament. I'm also going to be going to part 2 of Graeme's Opinion coming up next week coming up this episode, later on in this episode, talking about some news from the NFL as well as some news from the CFL, and might finish off with a rant today, but I'm not too sure what to rant about. But Lorena Mitchell is backstage now. We're going to get her in just a moment here. You're watching Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. Coming up next on Manitoba Show, this week's edition of the Solar Report. Stick with us here on Rise and Shine.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance, quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? We can install a system that is right for you with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.evolvegreen.ca.
Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba here on ASTV Productions. Gordie Tumilson joined the show here first off on this Wednesday morning. It is time now to bring on Lorena Mitchell of Evolve Green, host of Evolution Greenworks here on the network for this week's edition of the Solar Report. Lorena, nice to see you again on this.
Nice to see you. Wow, it's been so cold, hasn't it? Oh, minus 48 this morning.
Yeah.
Celsius.
Yeah.
I'm like, some people say that's not the real temperature. It was minus 36, but I'm sorry, at minus 36, I'm cold. What about you, Graeme?
Yeah, I mean, cold is an understatement. It's freezing out there. Is that with the wind chill that it's minus 48?
Was minus 48 Celsius with the wind chill, and all the schools closed down. I know Hanover School Division has come back and they've reassessed what they're going to close schools at, and they're talking about making it minus 45, and I'm like, oh, because 5 degrees is so much better.
Yeah, it's crazy, and the roads have been closed. It's been a lot of problems with that. I know Highway 2 and Highway 23 were closed.
I actually saw images of people skating on Highway 5.
Wow.
There was a lady out there with a pair of skates on Highway 5, and she was skating, and it was pretty cool, actually. A little bit bumpy for her skates, but clearly lots of ice there. And I think once we get down, like get all of the roads plowed out, that's what we're gonna find is there's still ice there, and a little sticky at this cold temperature. But when it starts to warm up, I think it's gonna get a little vicious on the roads again. Last week, we talked about how we were going to get that warm up, but of course, we got another Alberta Clipper in there, and we ended up with their second blizzard. Last week, there was 2 blizzards. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So, this week, I know this is our last kind of cold shot, right? We have phenomenally cold temperatures up till Friday. It starts to get a little more tepid. Still colder than the averages for this season, but coming into next week, we're going to start some real warm up time. And if we look at the long range weather, which I excitedly did this time, we've got 2 weeks of warm weather coming. I mean, not phenomenally warm, but definitely not what we're used to, and some sun and warm together. Now, I mean, I don't know if we're gonna get another Clipper in there, but that's pretty exciting news to me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to be a lot warmer than it has been for sure coming up here in the foreseeable future here in the year. And yeah, I'm kind of sick of this minus 45 weather. I'm not going to lie, Lorena.
I'm so not down with it. I really would like to really get to a point where we're just not dealing with this anymore. I mean, like, I know our crews even have been off the road quite a bit this past season, and it's very difficult to make a schedule as a company if your people work outside. Let's face it, hey?
Yeah.
So, and also the kids, I mean, a lot of those games have been canceled out there. It's not been very easy for the kids with the sports either, right?
Yeah. There's been a lot of cancellations. You are right about that. There's a game in the MFHL, the Manitoba Female Hockey League, that is supposed to be played on Saturday, I think, or Sunday, and now it was supposed to be rescheduled for tonight, and now it's rescheduled for Friday. So it's the problems with the highways, the cold, everything has been kind of on the negative side of things. But getting into any updates on what's happening right now in solar here in the world.
Well, actually, if we're talking about the sun kind of solar, then we're moving on to, well, first of all, we're going to have lots of sunshine coming up is what they're telling us. So let's hope, hey? Because our solar panels, they need the sunshine. This season has been terrible. Lots of snow. Actually, they're saying this is the 3rd heaviest snowfall in the last 100 years or something. Like not fall, but a season for snowfall, which is pretty interesting. Going with our drought conditions, though, that's excellent news, right? So that should mean we've got extra moisture capture in the ground coming into the spring, as long as it doesn't go all the way and do some pretty scary stuff. So I just wanted to take a brief look at the sun. It is actually pretty quiet at the moment. We have had some stormy intervals in the last 24 hours with the auroral area. We are in the subaraural area down in southern Manitoba, so we are not going to be or expecting to see any aurora borealis for the next little bit. We did have some stormy intervals back on the 9th in that range, but they didn't seem to cause too much effect on any of the electronics for that day. It was the earlier stormy that the CMEs, which is like flares from the sun, penetrating our Earth, was causing between the 3rd and the 6th of February. We had seen quite a bit of unusual activity with the internet, satellite, and also birds. Flocks of birds all over the world were pushing down into the Earth in a weird kind of fashion, and so they're starting to think that maybe that electronic penetration of that magnetic field also affected their flights. And but again, we should be pretty clear for the next few days. The next thing I would like to talk about in solar world, it's actually not just solar. We have an online conference. Anybody can join this conference. It's depending on the night, is up to $64 for the conference if you take all 3 days. It's 3 days online, and we're going to be talking about economics and business cases for performance buildings and deep retrofits. So this can include things like solar energy. Of course, it's going to talk about financing and sustainable building. Day 2 is going to focus on the planning and legislation. So this is One House, Many Nations is going to be speaking on day 2, which is pretty exciting. They have been doing lots and lots of great work with First Nations peoples and, the National Building Code updates, which we've been really working on in sustainable buildings. Day 3 is health and environment. So it's the health and well-being of the building. So, it talks a little bit about certification. It talks about advocacy, and of course, climate change risk assessment management is also going to be addressed that day, and sustainable building training. So, because that's going to be provided by Mia, who's going to be a guest speaker over at Sustainable Buildings Conference. So this is pretty exciting. Mark the date. So it's starting, I believe it's March 10th. So the tickets are on sale now. If you go to Embright and look up sustainable buildings, you'll be able to find that pretty readily. So we are really looking forward to this conference. This is a Manitoba conference by Manitoba Business Association. So it's Sustainable Building for Manitoba, talking all about your energy footprint, and that is.
Yeah, that's massive for that information to be out there like that. How huge is that for people who might want to get into knowing about what this is, but might not have the information that this conference is going to provide.
Absolutely. So set the date. March 10th is the first one, and it's over 3 days and some stellar speakers. Also, Kurt Hall is going to be talking about how do we meet those emission targets by 2050? So it was a report that was basically tasked by wanting to understand what kind of how could we meet those emissions? How could we get rid of fossil fuels by 2050? And it's a pretty comprehensive report. So, and he's a really great speaker. So very cool. You might want to check this out, Manitoba Sustainable Buildings and their conference coming up. And that's all I have in solar news this week. I think the convoy and the cold weather and the blizzards have been taking over news lately. So,
yeah.
And now, of course, got some other stuff going on. But I mean, hopefully by this time next week, we're talking about wonderful, sunny, warm days. What do you think, Graeme?
I'd love to see it. I hope it happens. Fingers crossed that it is able to happen here. Moving into Evolve Green, how's the crew doing at this point? Is the crew still recovering from COVID?
They actually are. So they've done Well, they're back, back to work. We are going to be off until Friday just because of the cold temperatures. I don't know if you realize copper wires break in -30. It's never fun to do that. And so we're going to have to wait. Otherwise, anything we touch will probably just break in the field anyways, including our people. So it's not worth it when we've got beautiful temperatures for next week. So they'll be back installing. But I mean, yeah, it's hopeful now. We're on the back end of winter. What do you think, Graeme? It's been a rough one.
Yeah, it's been rough. It's lived up to what it could be with the cold weather here in January, especially. Well, February and January especially. And yeah, I'm kind of over winter at this point. I love to go skating, of course. That's a lot of fun, but after a while, the consistent -39, -45 weather is something that's not too fun. Not too fun.
And it's really, I think this year's been very disappointing for a lot of people because even people who love the outdoor activity in the winter are put off by, when it's warm, it's a blizzard, and when it's cold, it's like really cold, right? So it's dangerous for them to operate a lot of their motorsports as well. So whether you're going, snowmobiling or whatever, right? So I think they're looking for that temperate time too that they can just enjoy.
Yeah, and here I was thinking that I wanted to see a lot of snow this year, which we have gotten, but it's meant a lot of shoveling for myself. So it's been a lot of snow this season. We got our snow piling up to about 6 to 8 feet, something like that, in our front yard. It's pretty wild.
It is, and actually, I have pictures. One of my staff members, he has a mobile home out in Oakbank Way, and the snow is literally to the top of his roof on one side of the building.
It's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It is not surprising though in the least. Evolution Greenworks. What's the plan for this week with the show?
So the plan is actually we're going to be covering the sustainable building progress. So we're going to be talking to some of the speakers and getting a little sneak peek on that conference.
Well, right on. That should be very exciting for the viewers to be able to check out. We're nearing the end of the report here. Is there anything that I missed asking you about that we need to touch on today?
No, just keep your eyes on the sky. We're in a solar maximum, so even though it's projected to be calm, by the weekend we could end up in some nice auroras. We've got some clear skies coming, so we should be able to get some beautiful views of that once that starts going on. Comes with the downside, obviously, we can have disruptions, but it is still beautiful to see. I can remember when the kids were little in 2011, it was the last solar maximum. We used to lay down in the front yard of our home, and that was our best view at the sky, and we would just watch them dance. So,
Yeah. Well, that should be exciting to be able to see that again with the clear skies. Lorena, thanks for coming on this week's edition of the Solar Report. Hope to talk to you again next week on the report, but until then, you continue feeling better, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, take care.
Bye, Lorena. And Lorena Mitchell on this week's edition of the Solar Report, joining the show here to update us on what's going on with solar right now, the weather, and talking about a lot of cold things today because it is very cold outside, especially today here in Manitoba. But coming up after the commercial break, I'm going to be going into my weekly segment here that I do, Graham's Opinion. Usually do it at the end of the show, but to await the arrival of Jamie Bettens into the show, president of the MJBL, got to fill in some time, so we will have that for you guys next here on Rise and Shine Manitoba show coming up here on ASTV. Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba, everybody. Manitoba show here on ASTV Productions, brought to you by Evolve Green, Fabricland Winkler, and AETI. I'm just going to take a quick second here to get the link for Jamie Bettens to come on the show. He will be coming on the show here at about 11:10, so we still got some time before Jamie comes on the show. Going to be doing an edition of Graeme's Opinion here coming up, of course. Like I mentioned already, but I'll mention it again, Seth Rock will not be on Graeme's Opinion here coming up for the foreseeable future. Just due to him starting a new job, just the schedule not working out with us to be able to do this. I could have done the segment with him pre-recorded on Tuesday last night, but I'm thinking that I want to keep the show live, keep the content live. So that is why Seth won't be a part of Graeme's Opinion anymore. Love having Seth on the show. I want to reiterate that once again. It's nothing against Seth. I mean, I'm good friends with the guy. So just one of those things where it isn't quite working out right now with our schedules, and hoping to have Seth Rock back here in the future for Rise and Shine Manitoba on Graeme's Opinion. So what am I going to rant about today? I don't think I'm going to rant about anything. I am going to have something different to talk about at the end of today's episode on Graeme's Opinion, of course. This will be a two-parter, of course, of Graeme's Opinion. This will be the first part of it, and this I'm going to talk about as much stuff as possible. Who knows, maybe I get through the whole segment here and don't even need to finish off with another edition of Graeme's Opinion Part 2 at the end of the show, but that is what it's probably looking like at this point. It's the link. So, let's get into Graeme's Opinion now here on February 23rd. Hopefully everyone's having a wonderful Wednesday morning. By the way, hopefully you're staying warm. It is mighty cold out there. I know my mother said it was minus 39 without the wind chill this morning. Lorena saying that it is like minus 48 with the wind chill. So yeah, crazy times out there. Happy to be inside rather than outside on this Wednesday morning for myself. But let's get into Graeme's Opinion now. Talking about hockey first off. Talking about the Winnipeg Jets. Their last 4 games. And, surprising. I thought they would lose to Minnesota and win against Seattle and Edmonton coming up, but they actually won against Minnesota, won against Seattle as well, but ended up losing to Edmonton. And on Monday, the Jets lost to Calgary. So let's get into it here. Just the stats from the last few games. Of course, Mark Scheifele notably having one of his biggest games of the season against Minnesota, scoring 3 straight goals after the Jets were down 1-0 to score a hat trick. Perfetti, of course, getting a tip in that game against Minnesota. Kyle Connor as well, scoring a goal, and Paul Stastny as well scoring. Blake Wheeler had 4 assists in that game against Minnesota, a huge game for the captain. But looking at it against Minnesota, even though the Jets won 6-3, they were outshot 36-31. They went 1 for 2 on the power play and killed off both penalties that they had taken. The Jets have been getting some good opportunities shorthanded as well, being aggressive, taking advantage when they do have the puck, and then knowing that the other team is not really paying attention as much as the Jets being shorthanded, and then sending guys on the break like Adam Lowry against the Edmonton Oilers. Nice goal by him in that game. Shorthanded. Of course, the Jets also having a 2-on-1 opportunity against Seattle, and Lowry sending it over a cross ice pass, cross crease pass, I guess you could call it, to Tony Nato, and he put it in that game. But the Jets struggled against Minnesota and Seattle in this way in terms of the giveaways. 22 giveaways versus the 8 that Minnesota had in that game. And in the 5-3 win that the Jets had over Seattle, they had 18 giveaways in that game to the 8 that Seattle had. Now, the Jets have, in my opinion, throughout these last 4 games, a lot of the pros and cons have been the same in my opinion. I think the forecheck has still been good, battling in corners, getting good positioning on the other team in there. I think Blake Wheeler looks solid on the forecheck as well, and it's resulted in good things. And I'm going to give credit to Blake Wheeler here once again, because when he does play good, I'm going to give him credit. And he's been on a bit of a heater lately. He's been fantastic with his passes. He's been able to get into the good places, getting into good position to get opportunities with shots on net. He ended up scoring against Seattle. And was that the only game he scored in the last 4 games? Yes, that was. But Blake Wheeler, nonetheless, has been having, a season where he's gotten better and better as it's gone along. I have liked the game of Mark Scheifele as of late in the offensive zone, but I will say that Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele still in the defensive zone. I get a bit nervous out there, watching the game, not out there, but watching the game from my household when those two are in the defensive zone. But their offensive abilities in these last 4 games and just as of late have been very nice to see. Taking a look at, just that good forecheck, support on the puck, winning puck battles. And also, I think transitioning into good puck movement once again, moving that puck around nice in the O-zone, opening up space for themselves. And on the PK, they have let in some power play goals from teams when they are on the PK. But overall, the Jets have been getting some good opportunities on the PK, like some odd man rushes. And that is something that has been definitely nice to see. I also have liked how we have been seeing the Jets, the defensemen getting more active into the zone, activating more as a 5-man unit. That's nice to see. Something that has been struggles along the way in the last 3 years for the Jets is just getting those defensemen activated in the zone successfully. And I feel like the Jets have been able to do some good things. Most notably, Josh Morrissey has been very aggressive in the play. But, going to the cons here, I just feel like the Jets still giving up a lot of high quality chances. There's been costly turnovers. Tightening up, I think, is still something that this team needs to do. And I still think that this team, something that has been arising more lately, has been just this team getting beat in tight. But overall, for this Winnipeg Jets team, when they are also creating offense, I do like the speed they're coming in on the rush into the zone. I think that was something that was demonstrated in that Calgary game. The Jets having a lot of opportunities, couldn't quite capitalize on all of them, as the Jets were only able to get 1 goal in that game. But, looking at it, the Jets in the last 2 games have been outshot. They've had strong periods in the third against the Edmonton Oilers, and they had a good period against the Calgary Flames there at the end. Just got unlucky near the end of that game with Kyle Connor mishandling a pass, unable to get it out of the zone. And then you know the rest of the story if you watch that game. But it's just those things that cost the Jets in the end. Is just those little hiccups, those mistakes that they make that prove costly in the end, because these teams like Calgary, team like Edmonton with players like McDavid and Draisaitl, they're going to make you pay. And, I think another thing is just the Jets in the defensive zone, losing sight of their man in the coverage. I know that pass from Draisaitl over to McDavid for that goal that the Oilers scored, Neil Pionk getting caught puck watching. He should have paid attention better and blocked the pass, or tried to at least. But that's just the way it is for this Jets team at this point in the season. One thing that I don't like, honestly, is even though the Jets have a lot of injuries right now up front, with Perfetti being out and Nikolai Ehlers being out, Kopp being out as well, obviously need to get those guys back. But I don't get why Adam Brooks, a player that just cracked the lineup, is playing because of injuries, is playing in the top 6. I would rather like to see Svechnikov playing in that top 6 role when the Jets do have players out of the lineup. But that just comes down to a coaching decision. And I am not the head coach. Obviously, Dave Lowry is. But I'd also like to rather see Heinola in the lineup over Stanley. Now, credit where credit's due. Stanley has been looking better than he has been in the defensive zone. He's been getting some good offensive opportunities. But I just feel like you got a guy like Heinola who has so much potential as a player, as an offensive defenseman, and also a player that, has shown some good things in his own end, has shown that he has a really good active stick as well, and a guy that can transition that puck up. And I just would rather have him in the lineup over Stanley. And I get, the argument about the size and how Stanley is 6'7", but honestly, you play your best players out there, and you already got a big guy in the lineup in Brendan Dillon. Obviously, like, having size is a luxury, but I don't think that's a necessity in a way when you don't have that advantage with the size. And I feel like the Jets have way more of an advantage if they would have Heinola in the lineup over Logan Stanley, but that's just me. I just think that Heinola is already a better player than Stanley has ever been in the National Hockey League. But overall, the Jets, still out of a playoff spot, getting close at times in the last week. But, taking a look at what the schedule is up next for the Jets. So they play the Dallas Stars tonight. The Jets are 22, 20, and 8 coming into this game, 6th place in the Central Conference. They are behind the Dallas Stars. And looking at the standings here, looking at the Jets in a wild card spot, how far away they are from a wild card spot. They have the same amount of games played as the team with the second wild card spot in the LA Kings, and they are 7 points back there. So it's going to be an uphill battle for the Jets. To be able to make it into the playoffs, they need to go on an absolute run here, and they got Dallas coming up here tonight, a team that the Jets, I feel like the Jets, if they do play their game, could beat this Dallas team, but who's to say? They weren't able to beat them last time, and the Jets have a depleted forward core right now in terms of the depth in the lineup. I think just looking at it, Colorado playing them on Friday is going to be very tough, especially in Colorado's own building. But after that, on Sunday and on Tuesday, these are going to be must-win games for the Jets because these opponents are way, way lower than them in the standings in the Arizona Coyotes and the Montreal Canadiens, and those are games that the Jets should be expected to win. But, it's going to be interesting to see. I will say that the big guns are stepping up offensively for the Jets in Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele right now, if you do consider those guys big guns. Of course, PLD has been great all season long, in my opinion. Kyle Connor as well. By the way, that pass from Cole Perfetti to Kyle Connor in that game against Minnesota was just absolutely magic. Just that awareness for Perfetti to spot Connor going up into the zone, in the neutral zone, and hitting him with the pass, and then Connor, he was gone. I mean, just a great display seeing that. I would like to see Perfetti back in the lineup soon, but with his injury, it's going to be interesting to see when he does come back into the lineup, as well as Nikolai Ehlers. I think that's a guy the Jets are missing right now. And overall, the depth up front for the Jets kind of lacking in a way, just with these injuries out. So the load is definitely going to be on guys like PLD, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Blake Wheeler here going forward to put up the same amount of offense. But if those guys aren't able to go, aren't able to put up the stats that they put up when the Jets have been successful in the games, when they have been scoring, it could be ugly for the Jets, but we'll have to wait and see. Talking about the NHL trade deadline now, 3 players I want to take a look at today. JT Miller for the Vancouver Canucks. He's set to be a UFA in 2023-2024. He's making $5.2 million a year, so AAV, so annually, and he's got 53 points in 50 games played this season. Now, I know that I've heard that teams like the New York Rangers, as well as a team like the Boston Bruins, Minnesota Wild, are in the mix to potentially offer him something. 1 second, folks. Just got to chat with Jamie Bettens here to tell him when he's going to come on the show. So yeah, I'm going to email Jamie Bettens the link here soon for him to join. But yeah, JT Miller has been Vancouver's best player this season. If not the best player, the best forward on this team. I know that teams are interested in him, but if I'm the Vancouver Canucks, if the return isn't absolutely in their favor, they better get a lot of value for JT Miller if they do end up giving him up, because players like that, hard to find, especially for a team like the Vancouver Canucks, who have been struggling this season. Obviously not in the playoff spot, but for JT Miller, like you better be looking to get assets back for him that are going to be beneficial for you. You better be looking to get a good defenseman back, a top 6 forward as well, and maybe some draft picks. I mean, you want to be able to set the standard for yourself in a trade like this. And I mean, teams could give up assets and will give up assets. I think like a team like the New York Rangers, who would want them back, want to add more scoring power up front. Teams looking to make a deep run. It's usually the way it goes. They could give up big assets for a player like JT Miller. But in my opinion, if I'm the Vancouver Canucks, if the deal isn't absolutely ideal, like I'm not moving JT Miller, because he still has another year on his contract after this season. He's set to be a UFA in 2023, 2024. So it's not like you have to rush to sell him at all. But at the same time, if the return is, pristine for this team, depending on what it is, could potentially see JT Miller moving. Jacob Chychrun, of course, a top 4 defenseman on any team he could play on. Most teams in the NHL, has been in the rumors that he wants to get traded. Now, I want to take a look here at the cap hit that you'll be getting with a player like Jacob Chychrun, who is a very good defenseman, who has been having a down year, from what I've heard, with the Arizona Coyotes. But let's be real here. It's the Arizona Coyotes, so the situation is not quite ideal for him. But he's a defenseman who is signed for 4 more seasons. I've heard that, he could be being traded. And honestly, if you are going to trade for Jacob Chychrun, you're going to have to give up a lot. This is a very skilled defenseman, a defenseman that's been very good in his own end, a defenseman that, is a very smart defenseman out there as well. And when you talk about size, I mean, he gives you size as well. Jacob Chychrun, honestly, the return for him, it should be massive. Not sure which team is going to be going for him. But throwing this out here, Arizona needs a needed center. The Jets, I think, need a retool. Maybe Mark Scheifele's in the mix for a trade, but it will be interesting to see what happens. That's just my opinion, not reported on anything speculation. I don't even know if Winnipeg is in trade talks with the Arizona Coyotes, but that could be an interesting thing to see if, that potentially could happen. I heard a rumor that one of my buddies told me that Frank Saravelli said that this could be Scheifele's last season in Winnipeg. So the Jets, if they are sellers at the deadline, which I think they should be, if Arizona is looking for a top offensive center, a guy who can put up offensive production, Mark Scheifele could be that guy, as well as some other assets as well that the Jets would have to give up. But could you imagine that Jacob Chychrun being added to this Winnipeg Jets blue line would definitely be a significant upgrade for the Winnipeg Jets. But taking a look at it, another big fish that could be moving on this trade deadline is Claude Giroux. Now, Claude Giroux, looking at it, has a lot of power just in terms of his no-move clause. We'll take a look at it here. Claude Giroux is set to be a UFA after this season. He's making $8.275 million. He has a no-move clause, so he's going to have his choice of teams of who he can waive him for. And honestly, the teams that should be looking at Claude Giroux are teams that are looking to go on a cup run, of course, teams that are in contention. I've heard a rumor about the Colorado Avalanche. Obviously, they got a lot of assets that they could use for a guy like Claude Giroux. Not saying that Colorado could be that team. And by the way, all of these trades here that I'm talking about, all these players that could be on the trading block, that are on the trading block, on the trade bait list, yeah, I'm not making my prediction on where they're going right now. This is just, just throwing some teams out here. But Colorado could be very well one of those teams, a team that obviously you got a guy like Nazem Kadri who's had a heck of a season. Obviously, you got McKinnon up front, but this team is looking to go all in the playoffs, like adding more pieces to this forward core, even though Claude Giroux has not been the same Claude Giroux in the past in his career as he is this year. Of course, let's take a look at it, actually, what Claude Giroux has put up this season. Searching up his name here. So this season, he's put up 38 points in 48 games played. Taking a look at it, like Claude Giroux, obviously, a guy that's getting up there in age, 34 years old now. But if you are a team like Colorado, if they did want to make this move, I mean, you'd be talking about a middle, talking about the centers on this team. Up the middle, you'd have Nathan McKinnon, Nazem Kadri, and Claude Giroux. That could be arguably one of the best center, as deep of a center. Oh man, I'm struggling to find the words. This team could be as deep as center as any team in the league, is what I'm trying to say. If they do end up adding Claude Giroux, and if this could be the year for Colorado, just looking at it, why not, go for a guy like Claude Giroux, because you already got good defensemen on the team like Cale Makar, Devon Taves, Gerard as well. Bo Byram, when he gets into the lineup, I'm not sure if he has been in the lineup as of late, if he's returned from injury, but this is a very skilled all-around team. You add more skill to this team up the middle, a position that is so important, vitally important to a team's success. I mean, you look at Claude Giroux as well. In terms of his face-off percentage, this is a guy that wins face-offs. He's 61.7% in the face-off circle this season. So, Colorado, if they are able to make it work, that could definitely be a team that could be in the mix, as well as obviously the teams will be choice, but a contender will be looking to go get Claude Giroux this offseason coming, not this offseason coming up, but at this trade deadline. Let's get this email sent to Jamie Bettens here. Coming up, what I'm going to talk about at the end of the show? I'm going to talk about back scratches, because my back was very itchy while I was doing the Solar Report with Lorena Mitchell. It was kind of killing me in a way. Not killing me in a way, I'm over exaggerating, but I was able to get this thing right here from my upstairs, and this thing is sick. This thing is honestly a lifesaver. I'll talk about why coming up, but let's take a look here. Let's send this to Jamie Bettens. What is this guy's email? But yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying this week's edition of Graham's Opinion so far. Leave a like, reaction if you guys are enjoying it so far, and there will be more Graham's Opinion where this has come from, where that's come from later on in this episode. But going to be talking about the NHL trade deadline coming up here. Just players that could be in that conversation to move to other teams. Coming up here all the way up until the trade deadline, which is on March 21st. So we are still a ways away from it, but it is approaching very quickly at the same time. Let's talk about the Team Canada team, the Olympic team for Team Canada. Unable to medal in the Olympics this year for this men's team. Of course, the Olympic women's Canada hockey team able to win gold over the USA. Very huge moment for this women's team. Congrats to them. But this Canadian team in the quarterfinals, they ended up finishing 5th place overall in the standings heading into the elimination round. They beat China, and then they ended up playing Sweden in the quarterfinals, and Sweden absolutely dominated this game defensively, made it very hard for the Canadians to break in and get good quality shots in tight. And it just came down to that one goal that Sweden scored. They added an empty netter, and they ended up winning it 2-0. But overall, you look at this Canadian team, obviously not having NHL players at their disposal. They would have been the runaway favorites to win it. In my opinion, I think a lot of people would agree with that if that could be the case. But at the same time, it wasn't even playing field in some cases, actually, because Team Russia able to add KHL players to their roster. Even though they didn't end up winning the gold, they got silver, losing to Team Finland. For Canada, when you don't have NHL players at your disposal, you got to be creative and find ways to bring in some talent that can compete. And yes, this Canadian team did compete, but take a look at it. I like the performances from the young guys, like a guy like Kent Johnson, Owen Power, who I think ended up playing the most minutes on the team out of any player. But you look at it, the goaltending for Canada was an issue in this tournament, especially in that game against the U.S. And you just look at it. Sure, they had ex-NHL players on this team, but doesn't mean these guys are at the top-notch level anymore. So Canada is going to have to find a way, if this continues, if NHL players aren't able to make it to the Olympics, to find some better talent out there. And I think that this team, obviously you want to have that experience there, but this team has so much young talent. This country has so much young talent at their disposal that they could use. I mean, I would have liked to see so many other players go. Obviously, having Mason McTavish there as well as Kent Johnson and Owen Power there was great. But, obviously, maybe not so much having the young guys, as many young guys, more young guys there. But, looking for better players that are, ex-NHL players and guys that are just not at that level anymore to compete in a best-on-best tournament. And I think that is something that is kind of iffy this year, that term best-on-best tournament, because you didn't have the best players in the world playing. But, for this Canadian team, I guess they were put in a tough situation, but at the end of the day, you need to find a way to put the best team together as possible. And it seems like Canada could have potentially went out and got better players suited for a tournament like this, guys that weren't as washed up. I didn't have a chance to really watch it, but you just look at the other teams that are in the tournament, more skill on their team than Canada had. And, I said that this team could medal, but I was obviously wrong on that. It just came down to a tough game against Sweden, and this Canadian team just not having that offensive firepower when it mattered the most. And that definitely hurt because they just didn't have the same skill as in previous years. But yeah, it is what it is. Hoping in the next Olympics that this Canadian men's team can get back to Olympic glory in some capacity and potentially medal next time around. And hopefully NHL players can come out and play next time around. But we are going to take a commercial break now, and we are going to hear from Jamie Bettens coming up here, president of the MJBL, on this edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. Stick around for more after this commercial break. By the way, also, this won't be the end of Graeme's opinion. Another part coming up after that interview with Jamie Bettens. But stick around for this interview with Jamie Bettens and Graeme's opinion at the end of this episode coming up on Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV.
Hello, my name is Lorena Mitchell, owner of Evolve Green. And here at Evolve Green, we take the environment very seriously. We have a 10 kilowatt solar system that offsets our main facility by 75%, as well as maintaining natural prairie on our grounds. Our mission, creating renewables that work for you. I started Evolve Green in 2008 with a passion for the environment and wanting to change my corner of the world. And that remains the same today. Through design, consult, and installation, we provide renewable energy systems and storage integration. Here at Evolve Green, we help Canadians rethink power and storage to help fortify our children's future. To learn more, visit evolvegreen.ca.
Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba here on ASTV Productions. Just got done finishing the first part of my segment, Graeme's Opinion here, talked about the Winnipeg Jets, NHL trade deadline, and the Team Canada men's Olympic team loss. If you guys enjoyed that segment, or if you haven't watched it, be sure to rewind this episode and go back to there. And if you did watch it, if you did enjoy it, leave a like, leave a comment, reaction on whatever platform you're watching it on. And if disagreed with my takes, be sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you disagreed on, and always down to learn about what you guys think about my takes and sports in general, specifically hockey in that case. But welcome back to the show, everybody. We are going to do an interview now before we return to Graeme's Opinion in part 2 of that segment for this week, and it is Jamie Bettens, MJBL president. Jamie, it's been a while since I've talked to you, but always nice to see you. You're looking good today. How you doing on this Wednesday morning? I know you just got done having a work meeting.
Yeah, very good. There's work to be done all the time as the owner of a small business, but at the same time, it's never tough to get me to sneak away to talk baseball or softball or any sports, really.
Oh, yeah. And of course, we are in February here, late February. But before we know it, Jamie, the MJBL will be starting their season again for 2022. Just talk about it first off, though. I'm pretty sure I asked you about this my show Coffee with Graeme, but I'll ask you it here last time that we talked. Another successful year for the league last year, being able to crown a champion just must be, once again, nice to see it all unfold the way it did, to have another successful season last year.
Absolutely. We don't take that stuff for granted. We hear about the protocols kind of lightening or lessening as we get into what becomes our season and specifically our training season. And so we're very optimistic that we will again have a season. However, anything can happen in this world, and we've all seen that. That being said, the season that we did have was very exciting. It was great to see some history happen as well with the Elmwood Giants and some of the tradition that they've built as a model and winning franchise, and to see a lot of parity that we saw in the league was fantastic this year. Every team from top to bottom was really in most of the games, and the playoffs kind of proved that as well. It was a little bit unique in how we had to do playoffs and only in a few sites. But at the same time, teams were willing to move around and make things accommodating to get a playoff in. So it was great all around. But at the same time, we're looking forward to growth this year, and we're looking forward to, taking a team that can go compete at a national championship and put our best against their best.
Obviously this league, as it's gone along here throughout the years, we've seen more players having more success at the collegiate level, and most notably Tristan Peters getting drafted into the MLB. Just to see that success that players are having more and more once they go outside of the MJBL must be nice to see that what you guys are doing, offering them the type of competitiveness in this league, the type of level that the MJBL is at, is being able to see these players move on to play at a high level in other places must be so rewarding.
Yeah, it's rewarding to me as the president, obviously, but I think, the real testament here is to the executives and the teams and the programs that they run that build these young players into the players that they become. We're a conduit to that, and we take some of the credit for it, but we don't take nearly as much as maybe the executives or the coaching staff should. We think it's great. And the message that it sends down to our player base and our pipeline player base in the U18 category and even the U15 category, we want them to see those players. We want them to see the Jordan Luciers as a weekend starter at Illinois State in Division I baseball. We want them to see that you can play in the Manitoba Junior Baseball League and you can move on to greater successes as well. So that bodes well for us anytime that we have those kind of stories to talk about, as we're one of the few sports that, can boast that, or even boast as many collegiate athletes as some of the other sports here with respect to US scholarships, of course.
You talked about the COVID restrictions loosening here, and seems like that is something that will probably look like it might be continuing as the foreseeable future goes along. So, with that, how huge that's going to be for the league with these restrictions continuing to loosen here, even though it is February, looking forward into the upcoming season.
Yeah, and, to our understanding as a league and working closely with Baseball Manitoba, a lot of the protocols in place right now are relative to indoor sports and indoor training. We've yet to really see true clarification on kind of the outdoor sports. But at the same time, the precedent has already been set with the current protocols that, outdoor sports are a little bit easier, I guess, lessening on the transmission side of things for the coronavirus. So we're very optimistic that, restrictions will be in place, and some teams may opt to even keep some restrictions in place. But our parks in our league are expansive. There's plenty of room to sit, at a safe distance from everybody and sit all the way around the park. I think a lot of people love to sit behind home plate and see a curveball or see a fastball, come in. But at the same time, sitting on the other side, outside the home run fence and watching the game is really a unique experience in itself. So we're set up for success in a few different ways. The big thing for us is the message getting out early enough so that our fans in all of our towns and all of our local areas understand that you can come to a game and there's no hesitation about that.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt about it. Having fans in the stands such a huge thing as well in any sports, especially baseball and the MJBL. Has the league been? Have you been able to have any meetings with the members of the league at this point? What have those been looking like, if you have?
A lot of it's stuck to online right now, and there's some things going back and forth right now. So we're starting our prep season now. I think we're going to meet in person or, have an official Zoom meeting probably at the beginning of next month to really kind of grease the wheels for the season to get started. Most teams are starting to ramp up on their commitments and talking to their players and get a good sense of who's coming back and, maybe who's not. So that's their due diligence on that side. From a league perspective, things are pretty teed up. The fees and the expenses are pretty standard as to, what they are from season to season. So it's a little bit easier for our teams to get off the ground running. And the main thing is having the players, the pipeline, and of course the fans. If we don't have fans, it's tough to put a product on the field as well and raise that money to do so without fans.
Do we know like how many teams are going to be returning at this point? Are we looking at all the same teams returning coming into this season and adding maybe some more into the mix?
I think it's safe to say all teams will be back. We still have some discussions with the St. Boniface Legionnaires, Bonnie Vital Black Sox organizations to find out maybe where they're at. They took a leave of absence, so they asked for it for 1 year, and we have to reconnect with them to see where their desires lie. Hopefully their pipeline is a little bit bigger now and there's some opportunity there. And at the same time, there are some outside interests for new franchises in some of the rural areas of the city. So we have some early talks with some of those groups. I think would be a little bit ahead of the game to say that there's something imminent for this season, but I think in future seasons, I think the league expanding is something pretty realistic right now. Baseball Manitoba is working on a few different models as well with their U18 leagues. I'll leave that for their interview and from when they go on the show. But there's some unique things happening with baseball that's making it a much more provincial-wide situation, and I think the MJBL is just going to benefit from that reflection as well.
Obviously the season last year due to COVID-19 ended up starting later. Are we going to see the league starting on time this year in that month of May?
We have every inclination to think that we are going to be starting on time. I think the Mother Nature is, probably put that a little bit in question right now with all the snow that we've had. But if we get the right amount of sunlight and the right amount of melt, our fields are all, built to withstand that kind of stuff. So we're pushing as if we are starting the season then and hopeful for that.
Yeah, I got to ask you this, Jamie. Have you been a fan of the snow and the cold weather?
You know what? that's Winnipeg, and if you're from Winnipeg, that comes with the territory. I don't mind it too much. I'm a hockey guy as much as I'm a baseball or softball guy as well, so I don't mind it. But at the same time, I think when the calendar changes, and the MLB starts to wind up for spring training, if they can get their house in order, that's usually when the itch bites, and I'm pretty done with the snow at that point.
Yeah.
So, I would say right now, yes, I love the snow and I love the winter, but it's about time now to start thinking ball.
Yeah, for me, it's like I've enjoyed the snow. I wanted more snow this year. Didn't envision us having this much snow though. It's crazy to see that amount of snow that we've gotten. But you talked about how you guys are gearing up to start the prep season. What's involved in that?
I think for a lot of teams, without speaking specifically for them, it's really about compiling the roster. It's really about seeing, who's coming back, who's, nursed the injuries back to full health, and then starting indoor workouts. I think a lot of pitchers and catchers are starting to understand the care and treatment of athletic injuries and getting their throwing programs going earlier than later. And again, when Major League Baseball starts spring training, a lot of guys get the itch, and so throwing at their old high school gym, or throwing on a lunch break or something like that, or there's so many great facilities popping up in the province as well that guys and girls can go indoors and throw around and things like that. So that's the main thing, is kind of breaking the rust off now, start to build up your body a little bit. You're never fully prepared for what you go through in a season, but with the proper weight training and the proper training for just your arm and things like that, I think good things can happen for our players, and that's what we're hopeful is happening all over.
We saw a different type of playoff format last year, as in other years, something that was a new thing for the MJBL. Is it going to be looking like we're going to get back to normal in the traditional sense of how playoffs will work, or will we be seeing a double elimination playoff format coming up? I assume that it is up to, just what the league vote will look like.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about that with the league, and I think that's something that we should explore. It allowed us a few different things. Allowed us to be a little bit quicker with the playoffs. It allowed teams to kind of scramble a little bit, and it was similar to college baseball in that respect. I liked it. I'm not the one who decides that. It's the league as a whole that decides that. I also see the benefits to 3 and 5 game series where you can have multiple home dates and generate revenue that you need to sustain your programs in Morden or in Winnipeg or St. Boniface, St. James, or wherever. So there's certainly positives to both sides of that, and I think that's something that we will definitely debate as a league and see what we do going forward. I would think we would go back to the original format, but at the same time, this group of executives is not afraid of change and willing to try something new, and maybe that's what we do.
You think that's beneficial in terms of how this league has grown? Is just you guys aren't afraid to try new things, aren't afraid to change with the times instead of just keeping it the same old traditional way it's always been.
Yeah, I think that's something that we pride ourselves on. I'll point to the inclusion of females playing in our league as well as something that should have happened maybe a long time ago, but just wasn't quite known as the norm, and the players weren't as readily available. But things like that, letting female baseball players know that they have a place to play in our league, letting our athletes know that we're willing to adopt playoff structures for excitement and to the benefit of the player. We care about the player first and foremost, and then obviously our fans, as a kind of a 1B, because if we take care of the players take care of the product that the fans see. So that's kind of how we go about our business and when we implement change.
Well, right on. Yeah, it's nice to see, the changes that have been made throughout the league as time has gone along, and you guys have put out a successful product year in and year out, and it's been nice to see the benefits of that. Just this league being able to grow to what it is now. Got to ask you one more question here before I let you go here, Jamie. Was there anything that was talked about last year, in terms of maybe something that executives, league members wanted to change that could be in the talks this year for you guys implementing into this season?
Yeah, it's not an exciting thing per se, but it's certainly one that shows that we care about our athletes, and that would be the pitch count. I think that's something that our league had kind of put aside for the temporary season because of the COVID protocols that I think will come back into play now and we will implement. Difficult to manage, I think, on some levels when you have guys coming back from college that have established, a bit of longevity in their bodies that they can pitch, multiple innings or multiple opportunities. The rule will still apply to that player, but the rule is more for the younger players, the developing players, or just the underdeveloped arms to kind of help them out a little bit. It's hard when you have a successful player in our province that could be as young as 15 or 16 years old that plays on his U15, U18, and even now in the MJBL, and along with maybe even a Manitoba commitment. And when that player plays across 3 to 4 different teams, we really have to make sure that our coaches are in good communication with regards to pitch count and wear and tear on those bodies, so that we're not taking away opportunities by overusing them.
Well, should be interesting to see what happens with the pitch count rule coming in this season, as well as exciting to know that the MJBL probably going to be starting on time this season, weather pending, and of course, COVID restrictions, of course. But Jamie Bettens, always nice to have a chance to talk to you here, whether it's on Coffee with Graeme or on this show today, Rise and Shine Manitoba. You take care, and I'm sure we'll talk again in the future here very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and I look forward to it.
Of course, Jamie, you take care. And I'm looking forward to that as well. Always nice to have Jamie Bettens here on the show. Can't wait to talk to him and again in the future here. If you guys want MJBL coverage here on, just updates from Jamie Bettens here on Rise and Shine Manitoba, be sure to leave a comment down below, leave a like if you do want to see that. So we are going to be going into the final edition of Graeme's Opinion here, the part 2 of the segment for this week. And I'm going to be talking about the NFL as well as the CFL here. And also going to be talking about this thing right here, the back scratcher that really is so beneficial if you are ever in a pinch. So we'll be coming back right here. Well, I'll be coming back right here on Rise and Shine Manitoba on ASTV Productions. Stick around for more after this commercial break. Welcome back to Rise and Shine Manitoba, everybody. Jamie Bettens just joined me here on this edition of Manitoba Show. Always great to hear from Mr. President himself of the MJBL in Jamie Bettens. Very exciting that the league seems like it will be returning to normal, it seems, this season. Barring anything changes with COVID restrictions here as they continue to loosen throughout the province of Manitoba. It is time now for part 2 of this week's edition of Graeme's Opinion, everybody. Going to be finishing off the show with this. Yeah, let's get into it. So talking about the NFL, something that I like to talk about a lot is my Indianapolis Colts. And something that has come up in the news here is that the Indianapolis Colts are going to be set to move on from Carson Wentz. Seems like they are going in that direction. The Indianapolis Colts are. Of course, they gave up a conditional first-round pick for Wentz that ended up being a first-round pick because he played the amount of snaps he needed to play for that to become a first-round pick. And yeah, obviously this Colts team finished with a disappointing end to their season. Wentz wasn't able to get it done in those last two games. The team in general just wasn't able to get it done in those last two games. But I will say that Wentz failed in those last two games. And when you are a quarterback that was supposed to come in and be expected to take this team to the next level like Wentz was, it just did not pan out. And I've stated my support of Wentz. I thought that he had a solid to good season in aspects of just his TD to interception ratio, but the completion percentage, subpar. Him making the throws in the big moments, I've come to realize I've reflected on Wentz a lot, and yeah, he just wasn't able to get it done, and there's just no excuse for it. But at the same time, if the Colts are set to move away from Carson Wentz, this will be about the fourth quarter. They'll be looking for their fourth new quarterback since Andrew Luck retired abruptly back in 2019. 2019 in the preseason is when Andrew Luck retired, announced it during the game that the Colts were playing in preseason that year. But the Colts have gone through Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, and now it looks like Carson Wentz, who has come into the Colts organization last season, is going to be gone as well. Now, looking at it, what a quarterback is going to get when they come to Indianapolis, well, you're going to have a chance to play with one of the top running backs in the league, one of the best backfields in the league with Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, pretty sure Marlon Mack still with the team. They didn't end up trading him, of course, but Marlon Mack could very well be a piece that the Colts could move. One of the best O-lines in the league, a top 5 O-line at that, and a defense that was able to create turnovers this season. Of course, Michael Pittman is the number 1 receiver right now, and aging T.Y. Hilton, who I believe is set to be a free agent. The weapons outside of Pittman aren't the greatest on the Colts. And I think that is an excuse that you could use for Wentz. But at the same time, I mean, there is no excuse when you are able to have those things like a good O-line and a good running back. A top QB could come in and elevate any type of weapons that a team has in store for them at the receiving position. It's just about building chemistry. I think that's another thing. Wentz only had one season with the Colts to really build chemistry. I think give him another year. That's still my opinion because of what is out there. What are you going to get as an upgrade for Wentz? Jimmy G? I don't think so. He wins football games, but how much of an upgrade will he really be in terms of the statistics he puts up? I mean, he is a guy that wins games, obviously, but, looking at it, like I've been in this camp all along. If you can't get a franchise-defining player, and if you're moving on from Wentz, I don't think so, because I'm sick of the stopgaps at QB that this team has. It's tough because that Andrew Luck retirement set the team back in a way in terms of the QB position. They thought he was going to be the guy for the foreseeable future, but he just didn't happen to be. But, Jameis Winston could be a guy, obviously, that the Colts could bring in. And obviously, yes, he's had his turnover problems. He's coming off of a huge injury. But he is a guy with a lot of good athletic ability, I guess. It doesn't seem like Aaron Rodgers is going to be coming to the Colts as much as Colts fans want that to happen. And, Russell Wilson, who knows what's going to happen with him, but I don't know if the Colts would get Russell Wilson. So at the end of the day, the Colts have no first-round pick this year. That went to Philadelphia. The Colts, really, there's not many upgrades for Carson Wentz out there, if not any. And really, you look at the QB draft class this year, there are some guys that have been talked about, but these aren't like game-breaking guys. in a way. Like this is going to be a very interesting offseason for the Colts, a huge offseason for the Colts, and something that they better get right. But, in my opinion, I still don't think they should move away from Wentz because he's only had 1 year. Yes, he's struggled, but he showed flashes of being clutch in situations. Obviously, it wasn't enough. Obviously, his play was poor in the last 2 weeks, but if you're not able to find a significant improvement from Carson Wentz, like I just don't. I just think that this team will be going in circles again if that happens. But it is clear that Carson Wentz will be on the move this offseason, whether that is a trade or if they release him as well, which would suck if they released him, because basically that trade becomes more of a failure that the Colts made if you can't get anything back for Wentz. And even though, yes, the trade market isn't the highest for him, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But talking about one guy that could potentially be on the move to a new team is that bad man himself, as Stephen A. Smith likes to call him, Aaron Rodgers. There's been a lot of talk that he's going to go to the Denver Broncos just based on the head coaching situation that they got there, bringing in a guy that is familiar with Aaron Rodgers. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe it is his OC. But, the pros and cons of Aaron Rodgers going to the Broncos. I mean, the biggest con would be you're playing in the AFC West, and Rodgers is getting older, and he's still playing at a phenomenal level. But you're going to have to compete against guys like Patrick Mahomes and a guy like Justin Herbert as well. And yeah, the AFC is it's a very, very skilled conference. The NFC is as well, of course. But I'd say those are probably the only cons for Aaron Rodgers going to the Broncos, because he's going to go to a new situation. A fresh start could be good for him in the way that moving away from Green Bay. I'm not really sure what kind of point I'm trying to make, but let's get into this. I mean, looking at the weapons that Aaron Rodgers will have at his disposal, I mean, just looking at the depth chart, let's take a look here. The depth chart of these teams here. Looking at the Denver Broncos depth chart. Yeah, so at receiver already, you got Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick as well. I mean, depending on what happens in this free agency coming up in this offseason, taking a look at the cap space that the Broncos have as well, them to bring these guys in. Denver Broncos cap space. Should have had this prepared, by the way, but it is what it is. So this team is going to have $50 million in cap space to spend in this offseason. Actually, just under $48 million to spend this offseason, as reported on January 12th. But if you're Aaron Rodgers, I mean, like, if you go to the Broncos, if he ends up moving to the Broncos, you're going to play with a very talented receiving core. I'd say that the receiving core in Denver is more talented overall than the receiving core that Green Bay has. You're going to go to a team that has a good defense as well. And you're going to go to, the only downside I feel like about this move with Aaron Rodgers going there is just the quarterbacks that he's going to go up against in Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes as time goes along here, because Aaron Rodgers, as good as he is right now, who knows when, those guys are going to surpass him. I mean, I think that Mahomes is already better than Rodgers in my opinion, but I still think that Rodgers is better than Justin Herbert. But that's going to be a tough conference to play in, like the AFC West, tough division to play in. And yeah, I'd say that's the only downside about the move. I mean, I think he's going to a good situation if he does go to the Broncos. The familiarity with the head coach, the weapons he'll have at his disposal, a good running back as well. I mean, you look at the RB on this team for the Denver Broncos, and Javonte Williams, of course. Melvin Gordon seems like he wants out as well, but this is a team that has a good defense as well. In terms of the pieces that they have, of course, they drafted a stud in where is he? Where's the guy? Where is he? Oh, I'm not sure. But honestly, this team has a talented defense. I mean, they have all this team really needs is a quarterback to put them, in contention for a playoff spot. And, Aaron Rodgers could definitely be that guy. So it will be interesting to see. Moving into some CFL news now. Of course, this happened a while ago, but I would like to talk about it. Is Winnipeg Blue Bombers former RB now, former running back, and Andrew Harris is no longer with the Bombers. Of course, I said that he's a former running back for the Bombers now. But he ended up signing with the Toronto Argonauts. And just looking at it, I'm looking at this headline now. Just felt like things were coming to an end with the Bombers and Andrew Harris, and that came to fruition this offseason. Just looking at this headline here, he just said he felt like he was unwanted. Says that there was little communication with the Bombers. So it seems like the Bombers were set to move away from Andrew Harris, and they're losing a legend and an icon, as it's stated here on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You look at the news on Google here, and it says that Andrew Harris, the legend and icon, and he truly was for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I mean, coming to his hometown, being able to win back-to-back Grey Cups, and being considered the best running back in the league for his time here in his career in Winnipeg. I mean, he was absolutely sensational and did absolutely everything and more that the Bombers could have wanted out of him. But he is older now. He was injured last season. Injuries were a concern for him. He was big time in the playoffs, in my opinion, when he needed to be. But, you got Brady Oliveira in the backfield. You got some pieces in the backfield that, are waiting to step into the ranks of that number one spot. I mean, Brady Oliveira showed flashes last season of being a very good running back in the CFL. And yeah, just came down to, I don't think the Bombers had the money to pay him. And it just seemed like it came to an end. And, Andrew Harris making his money with the Toronto Argonauts. I'm not sure how much he's going to be making, but yeah, looking at this other headline here, he's going to be looking to prove the doubters wrong. And after an injury-plagued 2021 season, and Andrew Harris, when he comes to Winnipeg, well, he's going to be looking at big games against this team. At the end of the day, it's sad to see Andrew Harris go, but it is time at this point, unfortunately, if you look at it. But fortunately for the Bombers, they got some great pieces in place, like a guy like Brady Oliveira, and they got, some good pieces in their backfield. So, yeah. Should be interesting to see how Andrew Harris does with his new team, the Toronto Argonauts, coming up next season in the CFL, which is coming faster than we know it, honestly. CFL always starting in July, late July, of course. Not late July, late June is when it starts. But can't wait for the CFL season, and we'll be talking about it here. Well, I'll be talking about it here, once the season comes along, power rankings and all that stuff, predictions. So, yeah. Taking a look at this thing here, back scratcher. This thing, I love this thing, honestly, because this might be too much information, but I'll say it anyways. My back gets itchy quite a bit, and there's just some spots that the human body is physically unable to reach for myself, at least. But with this is like an extra arm. I mean, it kind of looks like a fork in a way. Like a curved fork, an end of one, not as sharp as a fork, obviously, but I mean, this thing that I have, this back scratcher, I mean, there's many different back scratchers, but it can extend if you want. So if you want to reach to an area back here that, is hard to reach, you can do that with extending it. Or if you need to not have as much length, you can, of course, extend it and retract it, I guess would be the word. But back scratchers, it's huge. It's huge for me because I was feeling pretty itchy on the back during my interview with Lorena Mitchell. was kind of uncomfortable because of it, and was able to run up and get this lifesaver here, and it does the job. It scratches the area nicely on the back that you need to scratch. Yeah, that's really all I gotta say about this. I mean, if no one's around to scratch your back in your house, and you need that extra arm to help you out, that extra back scratch, that extra hand, I guess, to help you out with the back scratcher, definitely pick one up if you can. I'm not sure where we got this one. We've had it for a while, but you do see a back scratcher in the store and you do get itchy backs, definitely something you should invest in for sure. Something you definitely should purchase. So that is going to do it for this week's edition of Graham's Opinion and this week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba. Special thanks to everyone who watched today's edition of the show. A special thanks to the guests that came on today's edition of the show as well, and Gordie Tumilson, and Lorena Mitchell, and Jamie Bettens as well. Hopefully you guys also enjoyed this week's edition of Graham's Opinion. Like I said, leave a like and comment down below if you did, or reaction on whatever platform you're watching. And excited to do it again next week and talk about more NHL trade deadline talk, the Winnipeg Jets, some other news from around the hockey world probably, and as well as some football news as well as the offseason for the NFL, of course, and a lot of rumors coming up of players that could be moving. Maybe I'll have some CFL news for you guys as well next week, and probably we'll have a rant or might be doing something a bit different. I will be having more variety of guests on the show. Was happy to have Jamie Bettens on, changing it up a bit from the regular lineup here on the show. So stay tuned for next week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba, when Manitoba Show returns here on Wednesday morning next week at 10 a.m. Central Time. The guest list will be released on Tuesday on our social media pages, on our Instagram at ASTV Productions, on our Facebook at ASTV Productions, ASTV Productions, as well as on our Twitter at Amateur Sports TV. Be sure to check out next week's edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba on our social media, on our anywhere you can watch it, on our Facebook, on our Twitter, and on our website as well, on astvproductions.com. But before I let you guys go, I haven't brought this up in a while. I would like to bring it up again because the money has stopped coming in, and I've appreciated everyone that has donated so far, but it's my mental health fundraiser called Graham's Mental Health Fundraiser. Of course, I started the fundraiser because I did not agree with Bell Media, what they've been doing with Bell Let's Talk, and how the aftermath of what happened last year. Shortly after they had Bell Let's Talk. Let me emphasize once again, as I have before, that my views in the fundraiser and my views that I express on Bell when I do talk about them are mine and mine only. They do not associate with the views that ASTV Productions has on Bell Media. But the fundraiser is up to $137. So happy to have that amount of money brought in. I mean, it's just such a positive to see any money going towards a great cause, which it is going to the Canadian Mental Health Association. All this money, all the proceeds that you do donate. So I have a link to the GoFundMe in the episode today, and it will be in every episode moving forward, of course, as it has been. And yeah, if you donate $100 or even $1, any amount counts. And even if you don't want to donate, just be sure to share it as well, because any share helps as well of getting the word out there about this fundraiser, which I feel like it is going towards a great cause to the Canadian Mental Health Association. But that is all for today, folks. I've been your host, Graeme Forsyth of Rise and Shine Manitoba. Special thanks to the guests once again for coming on today's episode in Gordie Tumilson, Lorena Mitchell, and Jamie Bettens. Also, Harry Siemens will be coming on next week for the Farm Report, as that segment will be returning. I also want to thank you for tuning in on this Wednesday morning. It is almost 10 minutes before noon here, so I've been happy to spend this Wednesday morning with you guys. Also, special thanks to the sponsors of today's episode in AETI, Evolve Green and Fabricland Winkler, for sponsoring another edition of Manitoba Show, Rise and Shine Manitoba. And until next week, Manitoba, here on an all-new edition of Rise and Shine Manitoba, I'll catch you then. Until then, have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday today. Stay safe out there. Have a wonderful rest of your week and a wonderful weekend as well. like I said, stay safe out there, whether you're, on the road or going outside. Be sure to bundle up. Hopefully we can get some warm weather here coming up in the next week. But yeah, until then, folks, until I see you next Wednesday, I've been your host of Rise and Shine Manitoba Show, Graeme Forsyth, giving you the salute, giving you the peace out, and signing off here on this Wednesday morning. Take care, everybody.